Your secrets, if you really look at yourself, you would be speechless. What happened to being doctors and teachers? What happened to being your brother's keeper? Nowadays, kids.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy, Mr.BandClap, and we in the building with another podcast, y'all. So this podcast is going to be a part 2 to the one that I did last week. And this one is going to be about when you help others, don't lose yourself. I'm going to be talking about Oshun again, but this time is going to be talking about how she lost it all. Because with her helping people, she ended up losing herself. And I feel like this is a lesson that we all can learn from when it comes to being a good-hearted person and wanting to help people. So we got a lot to talk about, y'all. So let's get this show on the road.
Can I bring it on down? I know you can't resist my love. You don't wanna miss a good thing. I know you can't resist my love.
Alright, y'all, so we back. Welcome to another BandClap TV podcast. Man, I just can't believe that we're almost done with 2018. We're in December. It's almost over. And you know what? This has been a very eye-opening year for me. I don't know if it was for y'all out there. A lot of different changes happened this year that's going to really make a huge difference in how we're going to live from 2019 on out, especially with us melanated people in this system that we live in. Now, with us, I'm just hoping and praying that we're keeping a close left eye on the spiritual things that's been going on in 2018 as well. You know, I'm going to always shout out the new faces that I see at the Rockin Crawfish restaurant that I DJ at every Friday and Saturday nights from 1 to 5 that stop through and rock with your boy for the one time, for the fun time, you know what I mean? And one thing that I can definitely say is 2019, I'm already claiming it, I'm already putting it out there. As long as the owners and the staff of that restaurant keep a good Oshun heart, man, Rockin Crawfish is about to be put on the map. There's some real good plans, events, showcases, a lot of parties. I mean, if y'all can just rock with us in this time of rebuilding and getting everything together, man, I can already see how Rockin Crawfish can and will be that spot. Because looking around in the surrounded areas where that restaurant sits at, there's not really any club areas or there's not really any lounge type areas that's around there where people in large numbers can come there and vibe out, listen to some good music, eat some good food, dance a little bit, you know, have fun. There's not really a lot of places in that area specifically where you can just do that. And not only that, there's not a lot of places that stays open as long as we stay open for that particular purpose. So with that being said, I know that with the adequate promotion and making sure everything housekeeping wise is up to par like it always is, we can definitely put that restaurant on the map with the support of all of my listeners and all of my followers, and really just you all sharing my podcast like you have, and sharing my flyers that I put on Instagram and that I put on my Facebook page, and just getting the word out. Because at this stage, the more positive promotion that we have, the better. With all that being said, let's get into it. So on these last few podcasts where I've been talking about the Orishas, I talked about Shango and his 3 wives, which were Oya, the bad chick, Obanani, which was the wifey, and then Oshun, which was the best friend turned wifey. And I also talked about how those stories represented 3 totally different types of marriages, which was the forced marriage, the arranged marriage, and also the twin flame / true love type of marriage. And I remember that towards the end of that podcast, I asked you all, would you all like for me to do a part 2? And I read the comments, and without further ado, here is the part 2 of that story. Because see, on the last podcast that I did about the bad chick and the wifey, I talked about the positive and the negative about both of them. And since I love Oshun, I'm not gonna just act like she just got with Shango and they just live happily ever after, the end. I mean, I can't lie, y'all, that would be the fairy tale Disney princess ending. But the reason why I love African spirituality and the reason why I love these African spiritual systems, dealing with all of them, whether it's light or dark, because with our deities, everything is exposed for the most part. I mean, you get to see how these entities went about life learning different lessons and going through different tests, or the way they call it, paths. And at the end of their path, if they're victorious and they learned their lesson, they get exalted as an Orisha, which is highly synonymous with what we as people go through every single day, with the paths that we chose before we even came to this earth to even be on. So that's why I've always had a problem with the religious aspect of worshiping a deity, or quote unquote worshiping something that's higher than yourself, because all of these deities have issues, or quote unquote issues, because that's really what it means in Yoruba. When they say that every deity has an issue, what that really is saying is that all of these deities have issues, just like we all have issues. We all have things on this earth that we have to go through that's going to in turn make us stronger or break us down in a way so that we can build ourselves up and become stronger. Because let's face it, only an insecure father would want to try to attempt to live vicariously through their son. Meaning, no matter how good you think you are, no matter how prestigious you think you are as a father, the key was to always instill in the son that we want our sons to be better than us. We don't want our son to be just like us, to have to go through the same issues and the same problems that we had to go through. We want our sons to be able to take the tools that we raised them with as fathers and use those tools as a roadmap. But we have to remember that at the end of the day, those children picked us as parents to be a steward over them for a certain amount of time. But we have to remember that these children came on earth for their specific purpose and for their specific mission in life. So just like with these deities, you're always supposed to honor any energy source that came before you, whether you call that God or whether you call that Olodumare or whatever that is. But don't forget that your essence comes from that source. The only thing difference is that source came here and experienced this earthly plane before you. Nothing more, nothing less. That doesn't mean that you should worship these entities as something that's better than you and that you just have to give your all to it, that you end up losing your sense of purpose and that you end up losing your identity and your originality because you're quote unquote giving your all to this entity that's outside of yourself. That if that entity could speak to you, man, I swear if some of y'all's third eyes were open like y'all claim they are, and y'all could really get in contact with these deities that y'all worshiping, man, y'all would be shocked with some of the shit that y'all would probably hear from these deities. And most of them sound like a flattered father or flattered mother. Like, look, I love the fact that y'all aren't forgetting about us. We love the fact that y'all are honoring us and praising us for the things that we did when we was on earth. But y'all got to realize something. We didn't go through all the stuff that we went through, did the spiritual work, unlocked different things, just for y'all to want to pattern y'all life after us like we're the end all be all. I mean, that's the one thing that a lot of people just don't understand. That for every person down on earth talking about, I wish that I could be like this deity, and you looking up at that deity, that same deity may be looking down on earth like, damn, I wish that I could be like him, or I wish that I could be like her. I mean, you never know. Food for thought. Now, I bet y'all thinking that I just went on a Dick Gregory rant for nothing. But y'all don't realize that everything that I just said had totally to do with how things ended for Oshun, because unfortunately, however you get your riches is the same way that you can lose them. And always the deciding factor on how you get those things back is, can you keep that same energy that you had when you had it all, when you lost it all? And if y'all want to, that's going to be part 3 of this trilogy that I'm doing. Because now I'm not just talking about relationships or anything like that. I'm talking about all good-hearted people in general. This is what you have to go through in life. And these are also the things that you have to watch out for. And I'm talking to myself as well, because these are things that I went through in the past, and also things that I'm being warned about now, so that I won't make those same mistakes that I did in the past. So again, as I do in all of my podcasts, I got to put the disclaimer out there that I'm not a Babalao, I'm not a priest, or in no way, shape, or form do I consider myself as such. Like I say, I just meditate and I go into the source energies of these deities, and I report back to you all the spiritual messages that I interpret from these deities. So on my last podcast, I talked about how Oshun, her paths represented self-love, and it represented loving yourself and going within, getting those riches, getting that knowledge of self, all of that, and how as a result those things starts to play out in your physical life, meaning that Oshun in her heyday, she was a very wealthy queen, and this was even before she was exalted as an Orisha. She was just known around the kingdom as this real good person. I mean, even though she was the youngest out of all the other Orishas, probably except for Alegua, because of her being the type of person that she was, for her having the type of life purpose that Oshun had to the world, she was kind of one of those goddesses who had to grow up at an early age, had to get mature and do mature type of responsibilities at an early age. And since Oshun had a very close-knit family around her, I mean, she had Oya, who was like this extreme when it came to the negative aspect, and like I said, just because something is negative don't always mean it's bad. And then she had Obanani, who was that other extreme, which was the positive aspect, and how all of that went down. And like I said earlier, just because something is positive don't always mean that it's good. And also, just like Shango, she had some of the most balanced parents that you could ever ask for. I mean, she had Obatala, which was the great philosopher. She had Yemoya, which was the great mother. So the way she learned her lessons and the way she went through life, I would imagine was a lot different than how any of those other Orishas came up. So you can almost say that with her strong background on how she was raised up, for the most part, she was able to preserve the purity of her heart, which in turn, she was able to manifest the things that she manifested. But Oshun, she lost it all due to the same issues that us as black people are losing to this day. So Oshun, the same love that she showed for herself and the same purity that she had for herself, she looked out into the world and she saw all of the evil that went on in the world, and she saw all of the imbalance that was going on in the world. And her being the good-hearted person that she was, the first thing that she thought about was that maybe if I can love everybody the way I love myself, then maybe that would change the world, and the world would start to love themselves as the way that I love myself, which in any perfect world, that sounds so beautiful. I mean, it sounds like the most beautiful childlike thing that if you just heard your daughter say that, you would just, a tear would come out of your face, because you're like, oh, that's just so pure. But we know that there's this thing called duality, which is what Oya understood. Oya like, look, we ain't finna say these niggas. I'ma just put a hurricane and we just gonna wipe everything clean, and then we just gonna start over, and this time y'all better do it right. So she didn't play that. But Oshun, she still believed that there's still quote unquote good-hearted people out there in the world. So she pretty much spent most of her life really quote unquote showing love to the people. And sad to say that contrary to what she believed in, no one really looked at Oshun as being successful at doing most of these attempts that she did. Each of those patakis, there's always some type of element where the people didn't even believe in Oshun. I mean, they came to her for things involving beauty and love and sex and stuff like that. But when it came to more serious issues, no one ever looked at Oshun as the first choice. She was always that underdog, that runner-up. She was always that type of deity, but she always ended up outshining and outperforming all of the other Orishas so much to the point where it was pretty much evident that she was to be the queen. So for her being the good-hearted person that she was, she in turn got the reward that she deserved. But the beautiful thing about Oshun was that deep down inside, she really didn't need their thanks because she loved herself. So none of the things that they said about her, she didn't really let it get to her that much. But as we all do when we get riches and recognition and fame and fortune, it gets to the point where you start to care so much for the people that you're quote unquote trying to save that you end up slowly putting yourself on the back burner. And when you do that too much, that's when you start to lose yourself. And looking through the mythology of Oshun, I'm really starting to see that in her life, everything that she did to help others, she always put herself on the back burner just so she could quote unquote save the kingdom or save the people. Meaning that there was a lot of situations that she got herself into, a lot of different relationships that she got into that she really didn't want to be in those situations, that herself personally didn't want to be in those situations, but she did it for the sole purpose of saving the kingdom. The only relationship that she really did want to be in, that she really did love, was Shango. Now, translating this into modern times, you have so many people in this so-called conscious community that they have gifts and talents, and you can tell that they have gifts and talents, and you can tell that they have a strong mind. And these people would rather use that strong mind that they were blessed to have to try and wake up people who are asleep, when contrary to what you may believe, it isn't a lot of people's time to wake up just yet. And I know that that's hard for people to understand, but there's a time and place for everything. That's what my dad taught me. Some of these people that you see today, just because you're conscious in 2018, when you see these people out here who are asleep and who are not even caring about anything conscious or anything like that, like Oya, you have to accept that some people, unless they're looking for the information, unless they're like rolling over in the bed and they need you to give them that last tap to wake them up, unless they're like that, you just have to accept that some of these people aren't going to wake up in this lifetime. You have to realize that you probably been through this earthly cycle many a time before you actually quote unquote woke up in this one. So just like how you and your roommate may have the same class to go to in the morning, but the school is a little bit ways from your house that y'all living in, so you go to bed early and you set your alarm for at least an hour before you got to be in class to make sure that you get there on time. But your roommate, he might have a car and he might actually be a morning person. So your roommate, he has the luxury to stay up all night and party. And he also don't have to wake up as early as you got to wake up because he doesn't have the same responsibility that you may have. So just because you got to wake up an hour early don't mean that you can just barge into your roommate room and try to make him wake up too, because depending on the type of roommate you have, he might get up and punch you in the face. And that's the response that I'm seeing when I'm looking at these conscious people try to talk to these sheeple like they're gonna get it. And these conscious people just don't understand that it's not everybody's time to wake up in this lifetime that you're in. Everybody got their own cycle. You just have to worry about doing what you're supposed to do with your life purpose since you're awake, so that hopefully if you're still around or your information can live long enough to when it's time for that person to wake up, they'll have a good little guide for them that you left behind. Because since you woke up and now you're conscious and now you're aware, there are certain responsibilities that you now are about to have that if the people around you that you're trying to save, if they're asleep, they're not going to even be able to understand or fathom the gifts that you get since you're awake because they're asleep. They can't see them the way you see them. And if you spent all of this time trying to wake up everybody else so much that you end up losing your own identity and you end up losing yourself, the universe might be trying to push you to somewhere that's a lot greater. But if you're down here trying to bring everybody else up to where you're at and they're not even ready to be there, you end up missing out on once in a lifetime chances. And then you end up missing out on great opportunities and one in a million type of opportunities that if you just would have just turned around and remembered that at the end of the day, this is an inward journey, not an outward journey, you end up denying and blocking what's for you. And in short, that's what happened with Oshun. She did all of that stuff to help out the people. And she did all of this stuff to help out the community. And once they exalted her to being a queen, and then she had Shango, she had everything that she could have ever desired and ever wanted. The Most High gave her a gift that was going to be a part of her identity, because this gift that the Most High gave to Oshun was something that no other Orisha, no other human, no other entity aside from mammals, aside from animals, has been given to. And this gift that Oshun got was something that was even greater than her. And that gift was she was blessed with twins. Now, before this time, twins were only something that you would see like animals or insects or something like that. I think really animals around that time. You only saw animals having twins. It wasn't a such thing ever for a human to have twin babies until Oshun and Shango did it. So she was given something that no other human in the world had. So naturally, it's something that no other Orisha could even understand because it's something that hasn't been introduced to the world yet. And reading this kind of boils my blood a little bit too, because it's like those same people that exalted Oshun were those same people that shunned Oshun, called her a witch, called her a freak of nature, called her all kind of bad names, called her all type of evil names, just because she gave birth to something that no one has ever seen or ever could fathom, which were the Ibeji Twins or the Gemini Twins. And Oshun being so hurt about this, being so hurt that I did all of this to help y'all out, and now I'm looking for y'all to tell me how much of a good thing this is, and y'all are bashing me and all of that. So quite naturally, somebody who been helping people so much to the point where they end up losing themselves, Oshun went into a very, very deep depression. Now, it wasn't as bad as Obanani, where Oshun just fell off the face of the earth and all of that, but she did something that ended up costing her a lot spiritually, which was she got so depressed that she kind of started to take a little bit of that anger out on her kids a little bit, because in the Patakis it says that Oshun started to deny her children, because when you get to that point in your life where you start to live for the people, live for the community, and you forget that everything that you got, everything that you accomplished was because of the work that you put in, was because of the inner work that you had to do. And you forget that for the community to get the same blessings that you had, you can't give it to them. Just like the community didn't give it to you internally. You had to go and do the work yourself. You can show them how to do the work, but you can't do it for them. But with her not knowing that type of wisdom and knowledge, and when the Most High finally gave her that reward that she deserved, which is going to upgrade her even higher, because they say that a woman's greatest gift is motherhood. She almost gave up and denied the one thing that she's been striving and working towards. Translation: you got so many of these quote unquote conscious brothers and sisters out here who think that consciousness is just about knowing about racism or the history of racism, or they may think that consciousness in its entirety is about the Illuminati and how the Illuminati runs the music industry and how this Hollywood industry is satanic and all of this stuff, or how religion can be used as a construct to control the masses. And I mean, that's a good start, because talking about myself, that's how I started, but a lot of us, we tend to forget that once you get out of that frequency and you start going into higher frequencies, just like when you turn a walkie-talkie to a different frequency, you start to notice that other unfamiliar voices is starting to talk back at you. And it's going to be your choice if you want to be scared and click back over to the other frequency that you was on, or are you going to click the talk button and start interacting with those higher frequencies, even though it may be something that not everybody is going to understand, because at the end of the day, it's not meant for everybody to understand it at the same time. Some things is only meant for you to get it and meant for you to understand it, because you're the only one at this present point in time who put in the work so that you can understand it. So I know that this podcast is going to be a little bit longer than my last one, but I really, really wanted to spend a little time on this, because I see too many good people either, one, go rogue because they got hurt too much because they didn't know this, and they end up fucking themselves up real bad and just in a rage. They call it the red pill rage. Or on the flip side, you got so many people going into depression and suicide and all of this stuff, because at the end of the day, you can't really gauge how someone's going to act when they're hurt. And for us good-hearted people, when we get hurt, it really fucks us up, because we felt like we haven't done anything bad to them to garner them wanting to do something bad to us. So it's kind of like a sucker punch. So when you get to that point, all of my listeners out there, where you feel like that you've quote unquote made it, whether it's physically, financially, spirituality, any of those different avenues, and you feel like that you want to quote unquote share it all with the world, I want y'all to remember these 4 things, and I wrote them down. Number 1, only you know how you should be treated. Only you know how you should be treated. So don't assume that people are going to treat you the way that you should be treated. That's number 1. Number 2, when you help someone, don't always expect for them to give you something in return. Meaning, if you claim that you're doing it from the kindness of your heart, stick to that. Because when you do things from the kindness of your heart and you're not expecting anyone to give you anything in return, no matter if that particular person tells you thank you, or no matter if that particular person gives you anything back in return or not, the universe is going to always reward you. So that's one thing that you always got to remember too, because a lot of people block their blessings because they do something for somebody under a false pretense, subconsciously wanting that other person to do something back for them. And it might be another situation where they may end up getting blessed or something like that, but they end up blocking that blessing because they're expecting for this one person that they helped to help them back. So I see that a lot. Number 3, and this is a universal law actually, and that is never give when you know that you're in a place of lack. And as you see that most of all of these suggestions that I'm giving you are all things that is going to help to guard you from feeling any type of way if the world turns against you. That's really what this all is about. So never give when you know that you're in a place of lack, so that you won't start to subconsciously blame the people that you gave to when you get in that place of lack, because I've seen many a situation where someone would get into a place of lack because they helped somebody else out, and that person is still struggling, and they're trying to shame them into doing stuff for them, talking about, yeah, I gave you my last and I gave you my all, and it just doesn't work out. And again, you're putting out negative energy and you're blocking yourself from the universe giving you what you need. And the fourth and most important thing in this life that you're living in as a person, we know that happiness and joy is what makes this life worth living. So saying that, in order for you not to fall into these pitfalls that life wants to throw at you when they take away the good things that the world gives you. In all the gospel songs, they say that this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. So since the world didn't give it to me, the world can't take it away. Even though everyone may not agree with Christianity, that is one of the most realist statements that I've ever heard from being a kid all the way up to now. And the equation that I came up with is that in this life, you need to have at least 65 to 70% of the joy that you have on a regular basis has to be rooted in something that the world did not give to you. I'm gonna say it again. In order for you to be a sane and functioning member of this so-called world, this society, this life that you're in, 65 to 70% or higher of the joy that you have on a daily basis has to be from something other than what the world gives to you. So that, say if it's 70%, you got 70% of your joy and your happiness rooted in something that's not of this world. So you're happy to be on earth, you're happy that you got your health and strength, you're happy that you're a boy, or you're happy that you're a girl, you love the skin that you're in, all of this stuff. And all of this that you're happy about, it ends up being 70% of the joy that you have on this earth or in this life. Meaning that the other 30%, which is financial success, which is fame and fortune, which is having a house, having a car, clothes, jewelry, children, anything that's outside of yourself that the world gives to you. Success when it comes to education, degrees, certifications, all of these things that the world gives to you. Now, if something catastrophic happens, when all of those things that I just mentioned, if they were all taken away from you today, would you have enough rooted in something that's not of this world? Do you have enough of that joy and happiness to the point where you can still wake up tomorrow morning and say that I'm blessed? That, in a nutshell, is all that I'm talking about when I talk about that fourth point. Because since Oshun had all of that love for herself in general, when she got shunned and all of that, she did go into a depression and she did end up losing everything that the world gave to her. But that love that she had for herself kept her from doing something that would have been so catastrophic that she wouldn't be known as the great Orisha that we know now. And even in a man standpoint, we see all of these leaders, all of these great leaders, all of these great spiritualists, all of these great herbal healers, all of these great black men that had these dreams and had these goals that were for the people. And what of the things that we learned from these spiritualists and these great master teachers are we really passing on community-wise? I mean, let's talk about it. Why is it that people can recite a Kodak Black song, but when you ask that same child who Marcus Garvey is, they don't have a clue? Or how you have women who would dance and sing to Beyonce, but a lot of those women, when you ask them about Oshun and who Oshun is, they either, oh, that's some of that voodoo, that's evil, or they just don't know who Oshun is. But Beyonce is portraying her on her products and on the screen. And see, I don't even want to go down on that rabbit hole. That rabbit hole can go real deep. But anyway, y'all, bringing it on home, like I always do. Part 1 of this was about loving yourself. That was how Oshun was able to get Shango. That was the whole best friend turned wifey. All of that. It's about loving yourself. This podcast talks about don't lose yourself, because when you lose yourself, you lose everything. And part 3, if I choose to do that one, part 3 is going to be about keep your heart no matter what, because this isn't even the end of the story. Because if you keep reading and you keep going into Oshun's mythology, she got it all back, but she got it back in a divine way, because no matter what she went through, she kept her heart. She kept her good heart. So if y'all want me to, I'll do the part 3 to this, which is going to be entitled Keep Your Heart. Because in the end, if you start off as a good person, and even if a lot of bad things happen to you, if you let that not change you and you stay the good person that you've always been, no matter what, nothing but good is always going to follow you, even in the end. Take Michael Jackson, for example. He started in the game innocent and powerful and influential. He left the game innocent and powerful and influential. So you always get what you give at the end of the day. So this has been another BandClap TV podcast. I know this one was a lot longer, but this may or may not be my last podcast of the year. So just in case if it is, I really thank you all for being as supportive as y'all have been throughout this year. I've gained so many subscribers. I've gained so many views. Shout out to my brothers and sisters out there in Nigeria, in Uganda, all over Africa that's just been really showing me love. I love talking about your spirituality, about the Orishas and all of that. I just feel like it's part of my family now. I don't even look at it as a system. I just look at it as meeting my old ancient African ancestors and just chopping it up with them like you would be with your homeboys playing spades or something. So as y'all always know, Rockin' Crawfish. I DJ there every Friday and Saturday night from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. We got some of the dopest food, music, beer, anything that you would like. You know what I'm saying? You want to rock out with your boy. I'll see y'all there. And as always, BandClap TV, we out.